Hello, and welcome to my first ever top 10 on the 10th. On the 10th of every month going forward, I will try to bring you a new top 10 list. Obviously, it's going to contain just my opinions. Maybe some of them will be statistical top 10 lists. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do going forward, but I know what I'm going to do today. Today, it's very definitely my opinion, and it's the top 10 wrong booking decisions WWE have made, and I'm talking specifically match results. And these are 10 of the most egregious missteps that WWE has made when it comes to choosing the winner or winners of a match. Starting with number 10, John Cena versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 30. I was at WrestleMania 30. I hated this result, but the reason why it's so low down on the list, it's only in 10th, is Cena winning could have been a perfectly acceptable result. It was more the nature of Cena's win that was also a problem. If Cena had broken his moral code and hit Bray Wyatt with the chair when the opportunity was presented to him, and then gone on to win the match, Bray Wyatt would have had the moral victory, and I think that would have been fine, and I think this feud going forward would have been interesting, and would have been interesting to see the character development of Cena, who let Bray Wyatt get fully under his skin. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. John Cena was, Cena wins lol, good guy mode, and just beat him clean. Resisted the urge to embrace the hate, as was the phrase at one point. And yeah, won clean. And honestly, took Bray Wyatt a long time to recover from this result, in my opinion. I know he won the subsequent cage match in the most unclean fashion you've ever seen, but yeah, the damage was already done. He lost the rubber match, and it took a long time for Bray to get back anywhere near where he should have been after this feud. Number 9, Asuka versus Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 34. This is actually the match that inspired me to make this video. And I was also at this show, and I was also baffled and a bit mad at the result, to be perfectly honest. This did a few things. First of all, it diminished the first ever Women's Royal Rumble again. Asuka's victory had already been overshadowed by Ronda Rousey debuting at the Royal Rumble itself, and now at the show where the first ever Women's Royal Rumble winner gets the title shot, she loses it. Now I get it's just a title shot, it's not got to be a guaranteed win, blah 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 blah, but it makes sense to start a match like that's legacy with success, in my opinion, and instead it was kind of Charlotte wins lol. Also, let's not forget, this broke Asuka's undefeated streak, if you discount a Battle Royal in NXT that Eva Marie won, that Asuka was in. But if you discount that, Asuka was on a really long undefeated streak, basically since she debuted in WWE in NXT. And I think, had she won the title here, she could have gone another year and lost the title and the streak at the next WrestleMania. I think that would have been perfectly viable as something they could have done with Asuka in the state she was in. Now, they'd already started to water down Asuka when she came up to main roster compared with NXT Asuka. She was having weirdly competitive matches with people that should have been seen as beneath her. But it could have been resolved by just simply keeping the streak going. Because one of the main arguments I've heard, and I've even put forth before, and the reason why this is so low down on the list, to be perfectly honest, is, well, when would you have ended Asuka's streak? And I've come to the conclusion, in my own head, that my answer to this is quite simply WrestleMania 35. It would have been predictable, I think, but it would have been a potential good story, and it could have really been used to make Asuka, and then immediately, a year and a bit after her main roster debut, use Asuka to make someone else as well. It could have made 2 main roster stars immediately. Now, again, this is quite low down on the list because it didn't exactly ruin Asuka in the long run. She's a 3-time WWE Women's Champ well, what's now known as the WWE Women's Championship. She's a one-time... Oh, and she's the 4th longest combined reigns in that particular lineage. Since it got brought back in 2016, the Women's Championship. She's a one-time Women's World Championship. Of course, it was called the SmackDown Women's Championship when she won it. She's a 4-time Women's Tag Team Championship with the longest combined reigns with that title and the longest combined team reigns with Kairi Sane as the Kabuki Warriors. And she also has since won Money in the Bank. She's won an Elimination Chamber. She was the first woman to win everything. NXT, Raw Women's, SmackDown Women's, Women's Tag, Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber. She's won everything. So that's why this is only number 9, because it didn't really affect Asuka too much. Now, could it have affected Asuka? Could she have been way more dominant? Could those statistics have been way more impressive? Yeah, absolutely. But she's still gone on to have a hell of a career, so it's number 9. Now, number 8. Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 33. Honestly, there's a couple of Bray Wyatt matches that didn't make the cut for this list as well, that were just outside the top 10 in my opinion. Undertaker at WrestleMania 31, Goldberg, whichever Saudi show it was. They didn't quite make the cut for reasons, but I could have almost made a list of just Bray Wyatt results here. Like, Bray Wyatt in most of his career was horrendously mistreated in terms of his booking, and this was another example. He had just finally won the WWE Championship at Elimination Chamber, I believe, like the month before. Yeah, he won it in the Elimination Chamber, didn't he? And then he had this horribly short reign where he just got fed to Randy Orton after losing the feud constantly to Randy Orton and then losing the match as well. It was a stupid match with all the projections of bugs and stuff. Stupid result, and it led directly to an even more stupid result that, yeah, of course it features later in this list. Number 7, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar at Extreme Rules 2012. So, John Cena lost to The Rock at WrestleMania. The once-in-a-lifetime match. More on that later. And then, the next night on Raw, Brock Lesnar returns after years away from the company. What was it, like 8 years? I think, something like that. He'd been away. He'd gone and conquered UFC. He'd been the UFC World Heavyweight Champion with diverticulitis. Like, absolutely astounding accomplishments. He comes back. Huge reaction. One of the main things the Raw After Mania reputation has been built around. To me, the two big things have been the Brock Lesnar return and the Dolph Ziggler cash-in. They're the two top Raw After Mania, this is a big show in unto itself moments. So, yeah, huge moment in wrestling history. Forget everything that's happened since. I know. Like, you've seen my SummerSlam review, hopefully. You know I have a problem with it. But back then, we didn't know any of this stuff. This stuff hadn't happened, at least the Lesnar side of it. But it was huge news that Lesnar was back. And we started this story arc that was John Cena having the worst year of his career, which started with him beating Brock Lesnar at Extreme Rules 2012 in his return match. John Cena could have, as I talked about in the 10th entry on this list, John Cena could have undergone some dramatic character development story arc that would have been fascinating to see had he lost to The Rock, then lost to Brock, then lost again, and he has to find a way to claw his way back to his best and have like a redemption arc. Would have been an interesting story. But instead, Cena wins, lol. Make it make sense. So, that's all we really have ever asked, right? Is just make it make sense. Number 6. I mentioned not including Bray Wyatt versus Goldberg on this list, but I have included Kevin Owens versus Goldberg at Fastlane 2017. Kevin Owens was the Universal Champion. He and Chris Jericho were embroiled in a great storyline partnership that was about to really quickly go south. And their match at WrestleMania that year really deserved to be for the Universal Championship. Kevin Owens had been a very entertaining champion. They were the most over and entertaining act in the company by some distance at the time. And then they squashed Owens with Goldberg to make Goldberg versus Brock for the title, which it absolutely did not need. Goldberg versus Brock, especially after what had happened the previous year at Survivor Series, if I remember correctly, that was big enough. It didn't need the Universal title. It would have been every bit as big without the title, but Owens Jericho would have been elevated by being for the Universal title, not the United States title. So yeah, and also just the message that's been sent out way too many times by WWE, which is when you have an old part-timer, a part-time old man defeat your multiple-month world-level champion with ease, you are just letting the fans know these guys that are here week in, week out are not as good as the guys from the past. They're just not the same. They're just not worth the same. And then they wonder why people aren't as into wrestling now as they were during the Attitude Era. It's because you keep telling us not to be. Like, it was stupid booking, even without the WrestleMania consequences with the Jericho-Owens feud ending up feeling a little flat, and the Goldberg-Brock match being literally no better for having the Universal title on the line. It was just mind-boggling, I think is the term I'm after. Number 5, Hulk Hogan versus Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9. I ummed and ahed about including this because really, this isn't a result that was wrong. This is a match that shouldn't have happened at all. But it did happen, and I guess if Yokozuna would have just sat on Hogan and beat him as well, I'd probably have much less of a problem with this. In fact, I definitely would have much less of a problem with this. So yes, it qualifies as a wrong result. This was completely unnecessary. Bret Hart versus Yokozuna was supposed to be the main event, the focal point of WrestleMania 9. Hulk Hogan got himself involved because of course he did. He was politicking, no doubt, to get himself involved. It's the Hogan must pose cliche that we've all heard about. There was no reason, first of all, why Hulk Hogan deserved a title shot after the title match at WrestleMania 9. And there was no reason why Yokozuna and Mr. Fuji would agree to that title match. It was just insulting to the fans' intelligence, as well as just a horrendous example of Hogan politicking and the whole Hogan must pose mentality. Just a terrible, terrible decision all round. Like, awful. Number 4, CM Punk versus The Rock at Royal Rumble 2013. CM Punk almost got on this list twice, by the way, with his match with Triple H from Night of Champions 2011. But I decided that wasn't quite top 10. It's definitely top 20, though. Anyway, this was the worst way to end a then historic title reign. No one had had an over a year reign for a long, long time, especially not so significantly over a year. Like 434 days was massive for that landscape of WWE. WWE title reigns usually lasted 3-4 months on average at that point. And CM Punk transitioned from a face to a heel and did some absolutely compelling work mid-title reign. And then he lost to The Rock, who looked gassed throughout the entire match because he wasn't in ring shape, and CM Punk was slowing down to suit him and still just running rings around him. This led to Rock Cena 2 Electric Boogaloo, which no one wanted. It was literally marketed the year before as Once in a Lifetime, and then they did it the very next year just for the WWE title. Which, by the way, if you'd wanted to make it a twofer, don't advertise it as Once in a Lifetime, and it doesn't ever need to be for the WWE title. It's Rock versus Cena. That did not need the title. But because they'd advertised it as Once in a Lifetime, and because everyone was so invested in CM Punk's title reign, no one wanted this to happen. And, on top of everything, it confirmed that CM Punk's pipe bomb had done absolutely nothing. This match meant that CM Punk didn't main event WrestleMania that year, and The Rock did, which was a specific gripe in the pipe bomb, that the fact that Dwayne is main event in WrestleMania and I'm not makes me sick. And then they just did it anyway. And I remember watching this, knowing that The Rock was going to win, but hoping to God I was wrong. And I wasn't. Number 3, Batista wins the Royal Rumble 2014. Like, come on. Has there ever been a more obvious choice for Royal Rumble winner that they simply didn't do than Daniel Bryan in 2014? Maybe. Watch this space. But for now, for this entry, no. At this point in time, there had never been a more obvious Royal Rumble winner that they decided to just ignore, in my opinion. The fact that this wasn't even... What happened at WrestleMania 30 wasn't even part of the plan. They genuinely thought everyone was just going to be like, Batista's back, yay! Daniel who? And just cheer Batista, and he was going to go on to WrestleMania and dethrone Randy Orton, and everyone would be so happy, despite the fact that the crowd had been hijacking the show for Daniel Bryan for months at this point. They thought, oh, but Batista will fix all that. Like, I like Batista. I like him even more recently, for reasons I'm sure you can all guess. But I like Batista. I was excited Batista was coming back. But the fact that the plan wasn't for Batista to win the Rumble, the fan backlash to turn him heel, and then Daniel Bryan to get into the main event, the fact that that had to be changed between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania is mind-boggling, and most of the reason I've put this so high on the list, to be honest. Because if it was planned as a way to have more adversity for Daniel Bryan to overcome, fine. It's still a weird choice, but you've made it for a good reason. But that wasn't the plan. By all accounts, that was not the plan. And just the fact that the fans did not give up on the Daniel Bryan thing was why WrestleMania 30 turned out the way it did. I am genuinely at a loss for words for what to say about how mind-bogglingly stupid that booking decision and plan was. Speaking of mind-bogglingly stupid booking decisions, number 2, Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton at Backlash 2017. If you make a top 10 list about worst booking decisions in WWE history and this match is not on there, you are insane. I don't care if you are a Jinder Mahal fan. I don't care if you are Jinder Mahal himself. The fact is that Jinder Mahal had made a career as a lifelong jobber. He lost all the time. That was what he did. He went away, he bulked up a lot, no comment, and he came back and he won one match that was basically promoted as a jobber match. Hey, here's a bunch of people you wouldn't ever expect to see challenging for the WWE title. Let's have one of them challenge for the WWE title. And it's like, okay, I guess, I mean, this is, Randy Orton's just fresh off his win over Bray Wyatt, so I guess this is just to feed him an easy title defense, but it's a bit transparent that you're doing this, WWE. And then Jinder Mahal won that match, and it's like, well, one of the 6 had to. And then Jinder Mahal beat Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. And then he had like a 6-month reign where he had the exact same match over and over again with Randy Orton and Shinsuke Nakamura and I've forgotten who. And then Vince realised this is insane and took the title off him before the Survivor Series match because Jinder versus Brock was not going to be good. So they gave the title to AJ Styles, who can actually do a match like that. But what was Jinder Mahal? Like, no disrespect to Jinder Mahal, the wrestler, the human being, none of that. This isn't what this rant is about. This is about Jinder Mahal, the character. What the hell was that character at that point in his career doing, winning the WWE Championship with no build? Like, had he come back looking as he did and started to build results and 6 months, maybe even a year, you've got to do a lot of work to undo that fan perception of this guy loses all the time. And he just basically wins 2 matches and he's WWE champion, which is probably more matches than he'd won in the previous decade. Like, just mind-boggling. And I know they wanted to expand into India and tap into a huge potential market, but they booked him as a cowardly heel. How's that supposed to appeal to the people of India, to see the person who is meant to sort of represent them being a coward, being undeserving, booked as undeserving, I mean, of his spot, constantly getting outside interference help, winning dodgy match after dodgy match after being clearly presented as inferior to his challenger? How is that supposed to make you be like, I love this show, they really care about me and my people and my culture? Like, come on. Just everything about this was ridiculous. And yet it's not number 1. Because at number 1 is Roman Reigns winning the Royal Rumble in 2015. That's right, they got it so wrong 2 years in a row that it's 2 of the top 3 entries on this list, in my opinion. This is the worst. This is the worst one, in my opinion. You know what? I will accept any iteration of these top 3, honestly. Like, but in my opinion, this one just about edges it out because they'd already made the mistake the year before. And then Daniel Bryan, they salvaged it. Daniel Bryan won the championship at WrestleMania. He had a short, underwhelming reign because of injury. He went away. He'd either returned or he was ready to return by the Royal Rumble the next year. He was in WrestleMania 31. I was there. He won the IC title in the ladder match that year, right? Am I thinking the right WrestleMania? I think so. So, and he's still, like, maybe not quite as popular as he was at his absolute peak because he's been off TV for a while, but you can easily just rebuild that fan sentiment with the return from injury angle, the nostalgia from last year, blah, blah, blah. You can easily redo that. Meanwhile, Roman Reigns, they've done the Shield split up in 2014, and fans have very quickly spotted that Roman Reigns is just being pushed to the moon, and they've immediately turned on it. And WWE thought, you know what'll fix this? Let's have him win the Royal Rumble and then go on to fight for and presumably win the WWE title at WrestleMania. That'll stop people being sick of him, like being shoved down their throats too soon. It's just such... Everything about this top 3 is just such ignorance of how fans see the product, in my opinion. Yeah, and if you want to know how... The reason this one's number 1, there's one thing that makes this number 1 in my mind, which is The Rock, who at the time was still very, very popular with WWE fans. He wasn't, you know, the final boss. He wasn't getting booed. He didn't have all this sort of backlash over weird creative decisions and hijacking WrestleManias and WrestleMania builds and all that sort of stuff. He was just, oh my god, The Rock's back. That was the only reaction, right? Back in 2015. The Rock came out to the ring and raised Roman Reigns' hand specifically to stop the fans booing and start the fans cheering. The theory being, yeah, they're booing Roman, but they'll cheer The Rock. So if The Rock stood next to Roman, it'll look like they're cheering Roman. And they just booed The Rock. Because even The Rock couldn't salvage that crowd reaction. And that's what makes this the most egregious, in my opinion, is it's just so tone deaf. It's so tone deaf for what was wanted and needed at the time. 2 years in a row, Daniel Bryan should have been the Royal Rumble winner. And 2 years in a row, they screwed it up. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If there's any matches you think I missed. Like I said, I have a short list of 15 to 20. So there's every chance if you have a couple of matches that you think, how was this not? Then it was probably my 11th or 16th or whatever. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are there any screaming examples that I've missed? Let me know, and I'll let you know if that was on my list, if it was a match I don't think is that bad, or if it was just one that I go, My bad, I never even thought of that. I just forgot that match happened. Could be any of the three, right? So let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, and share with your friends if you think they would enjoy. Also, in the description is a link to my Patreon, where I will be uploading a poll. Well, not a poll as such. A post where people can suggest a top 10 list for next month. And that'll be the $10 a month tier that get to do that. But then, anyone from, I think it's the $4 a month tier and above, will get to vote in a poll based on people's suggestions in that post. So, head over to Patreon, choose your level of involvement, and, yeah, choose some of my content going forward. But for now, all I have left to say is thank you very much for watching. As always, I've been EBEZA, you've been amazing, and I'll see you next time.